Hey everyone, I've finally gotten up to one of my favorite episodes in all of Power Rangers Reinforcements from the Future. Like, of the whole series, this is definitely one of my favorites because it's the return of Time Force, my favorite season. And also, it's just a really, really fun team up. It's a really great episode. Two episodes, actually. So, anyway, summary first, and then I'll talk about all the other stuff and I won't talk about everything with this episode. I'm going to save some of it for the next episode because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about that specifically is about stuff that occurs in the next episode. So, anyway, summary Taylor is driving her new car and gets pulled over for speeding, which is, I don't know, just such a funny, weird, real world thing to be happening in Power Rangers. It's very bizarre. So, anyway, she's given a ticket. The cops or whatever go back to their car. The camera pulls back, and we see it's Eric and Wes, both members of Silver Guardians now. And, yeah. Apparently, Turtle Cove is close to Silver Hills. That's interesting. I would love at some point to see a map of Power Rangers to see where every place is, because in a couple of seasons, when there's a team up, it doesn't seem like they're going that far to go wherever. So later that night, we see this trio of monsters vandalizing cars, and I'll talk about these monsters later. They have a few design elements about them that seem suspiciously familiar. So then, Gendrax and Toxica. Oh, and this is an interesting thing. Toxica's horn glows when they get close to the monsters. Was that a thing earlier? I think that was a thing like really early on in the series that they kind of dropped, and I don't know. It's a thing that I like. It's a cool, unique ability for her. So they find the monsters, and they're like, "Hey, we're Duke Orgs. You should work for us because we overrank you." And they start fighting with Jindrax and Toxica, and then they leave, and Jindrax is like, "What's going on?" And that's funny. Oh, and the monsters. One of them is holding this weird little device, and it gives them a signal, and they follow it, and that's why they leave. So then, the next day, the three monsters are attacking the city. Eric and Wes go to stop them, along with the Silver Guardians, and the Silver Guardians are getting their butts kicked by the monsters. Wes and Eric can't stop them, so they decide that the only thing left to do is morph, and that is so cool. I can't remember if at the end of Time Force, if it's left up in the air or not, that they get to keep their powers. Like, I don't know, I guess it's just not really a thing, like, dramatically that would have made sense, like, as the Rangers are leaving, Wes is like, oh, hey, do we get to keep our powers? Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, okay, cool, thanks, bye. So anyway, yeah, Wes and Eric still have their powers. That's really cool. They morph, but then they're still barely able to hold their own against the monsters. And just then, the Wild Force Rangers show up to help, and the monsters leave again, following their little device. And so then the Rangers meet each other. Wes and Eric demorph, and Taylor recognizes Eric. You're the one who gave me the traffic ticket, which is a funny little interaction. And other than that, the Rangers are very casual with each other, which is something I really like in this, how casual they are. Like, oh, new Rangers. Yeah, new Rangers. Huh, cool. Yep, it's cool. Well, see ya. Yep, see ya. Stupid guy, give me a traffic ticket. um, it's an odd thing when I think about the early seasons. Um, I'm trying to remember, like, if are there any other team ups where the Rangers interacting is this casual, like on their first meeting? I can't think of any that were like too much like up till now, most of the teams when they meet, they kind of know each other. The only time where they really didn't was I think well, in Lost Galaxy, they knew who the In-Space Rangers were because the In-Space Rangers revealed their identities for the most part. And then in Lightspeed, they knew who the Lost Galaxy Rangers were, I'm guessing because they didn't really have secret identities, and Terra Venture was like a I don't know, it was from Earth, so they probably relayed information back to Earth and footage or whatever, and so people on Earth would be seeing news footage of the Lost Galaxy Rangers on Terra Venture, so they kind of knew who they were. when Time Force meets Lightspeed. Lightspeed, again, they didn't have secret identities at all, and so Time Force probably did kind of sort of know who they were. Wes at least probably knew who they were, sort of. I'm trying to whatever. I'm getting off topic. Back to the episode. Gotta turn my phone back on. Okay, so the Wild Force Rangers go. Yeah, the Wild Force Rangers go back to the Animarium, and they're telling Shayla about meeting new Rangers. Were they nice? Yeah, yeah. And then Taylor's like, no. Taylor's awesome. So then Wes and Eric contact Trip in the future, which is a really cool bit. I really, really like this. And this is a thing that we really don't get anymore in team-ups, where it's not just bringing back old Rangers or an old villain or whatever. They bring back so many little elements of the previous season. Let's see, Wes and Eric set up the little hologram screen. It's such a cool little thing, call back to Time Force, and it just it makes it feel like Time Force is like existing organically in this world. Like the Wild Force Rangers have their own thing going on. Their show is completely different in tone and style and everything from Time Force, but I don't know, when they do stuff like this, it just feels like, yeah, everything makes sense in the world. Everything is connected and flows organically, and it all just feels right. It's not like some of the newer, whatever, I'm not going to complain about the newer season, so back to this thing. Trip tells them that Jen went back trying to arrest 3 mutants who went back in time to 2002, and they lost contact with Jen. Wes is really worried about this, and then meanwhile, the 3 monsters are being spied on by a mysterious cloaked figure. Could it be Jen? Yeah, probably. So then Wes and Eric go to Taylor. They ask her for the help of the Wild Force Rangers. Taylor takes them up to the Animarium, and then Trip calls them. They set up the little hologram screen, and there's some really cool bits here where when the Rangers are up on the Animarium, they see Shayla pop up out of the magic fountain thing, and they're kind of like, oh, boy, that's pretty weird. Okay, anyway, moving on. Because, I mean, yeah, that's pretty weird, but then again, Eric and Wes have seen plenty weird stuff. This probably doesn't seem that weird to them. Like, oh, a woman jumped out of a fountain, we're up on a magic floating island shaped like a turtle. And, like, I could just see Eric telling the other Rangers, like, hey, this one time I went back in time and found a robot dinosaur. It's my Zord now. Oh, and he actually mentions his Zord, the Q-Rex. Even though I don't think... Yeah, the none of the Zords show up in these episodes. These are American shot episodes, and when they do American exclusive things, usually the Zords unfortunately get left out. Let's see, I was thinking of the other weird thing that Wes was involved with, that magic cave with the knight and the dragon. That was pretty weird. So yeah, Animarium probably, like, yeah, it's weird, but it's not like it's that different from anything they've seen before. So I like their kind of casual attitude towards all this. The Wild Force Rangers are kind of like stunned by the holographic TV screen thing. I'm guessing probably because most of their powers are based in magic. They haven't really experienced futuristic technology yet, so this is their first big introduction to something like that. So then, see, okay. So Trip tells the Rangers that the monsters are half org, half mutant, mute orgs. Okay. This is another nice thing that I like. The monsters have a connection to not just one season, but both seasons that are incorporated into this team up. They're mutants and orgs. It's a cool thing that uh, I'm trying to think. Do we ever have something like that again, where it's like kind of a fusion of the two teams' unique type of monsters? Back in Aliens or Rangers of Two Worlds, the team up with the Alien Rangers, let's see, Zed and Rita make a monster, the Machine Empire makes a monster, and then the monsters fuse. I guess it's kind of like that. So anyway, moving on. In the future, Katie and Lucas find Nadira and ask her for her help. And this is a cool thing. It's a way to incorporate all the Time Force Rangers. Katie and Lucas don't get that big of a role here, but they do get to do something. And they get, like, a line, and Nadira get some lines. It's a nice thing. Then they take Nadira to see Rancic, and this is a really cool thing, being able to see Rancic and Nadira interact again after so long. It is so cool because they were two of my favorite characters, and so then they request for Rancic's help. And then back in the present, Wes and Eric join the Wild Force Rangers against the Mute Orgs. The Mute Orgs are causing trouble again. So then there's this big battle with the Mute Orgs. It's really cool. Wes is in trouble. He's about to get whacked in the face by the monster, and then suddenly the monster's blasted. And then we see up on the hill is the cloaked figure from earlier. Then they take off the cloak, and it's Jen in this, like, uber badass, like, Sarah Connor Terminator thing. It's freaking awesome. She jumps down, leaps into battle, fights off the monsters, and she's like, come on, and leads the Rangers to safety, and then the Mute Orgs leave because their device is going off, and so they're following the thing, and it leads them down into Master Org's lair. And then Master Org sees them, and they're like, we pledge our loyalty to you, and he's like, ha 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 ha, and to be continued. It's a freaking amazing episode. I love this one. So much about this team-up works so perfectly. I love it. I can't say enough how much I freaking love it. There are some issues I have with it, and I'll go into them now. The biggest issue is the monsters' designs. I'm not a fan of this recycling costumes this way. Especially, like, it looks so rushed. Which, doing some research on this episode, I found out from Ranger Wiki. I'm assuming this is true because it sounds pretty accurate that initially the three monsters were going to be three monsters that appeared in a Gao Ranger movie. And, let's see, the suits were about to be shipped over, but there was a fire in the warehouse, and the suits were damaged and couldn't be used. So the American production had to scramble and, cobble together some suits that could kind of serve the job, and I think they did a decent job if that story is true. I definitely like to think that, rather than they just took some old costumes, slapped some paint on, swapped some pieces around, and were like, that's good enough, right? One of the weird things is, like, apparently the arms came from different suits, but the bodies were, like, from other suits, and some of the suit pieces they used were from unused monsters, which makes me wonder, why didn't they just use the whole suit? Then again, I have seen, like, some images, some photos of what some of the monster costumes looked like, what condition they were in by Wild Force. Some of them were not in the best of shape. Some of them were, like, they were crumbling apart, they were discolored, like, pieces were missing. Sometimes they would get the costumes in pieces and they wouldn't know where all the pieces went at times. I can sympathize with, like, the rush and what that must be like. Anyway, I think they work well enough for the story, but some of them, I think they could have made a few more alterations to make them a little less obvious that these are reused costumes. Let's see, they have, like, Darkonda or Darklipter, I don't know, the body, and there's, like, the little chains hanging off, there's the little spikes on the chest. I think they could have taken the spikes off, taken the chains off. That would have gone a huge way in not making it so obvious this is a reused costume. Then again, I don't know, maybe they were thinking they might reuse it again for Darklipter or Darkonda. I don't know. I don't know why they would think about wanting to bring those characters back. Just alter the suit. It's really weird because way back in Turbo, Fire in Your Tank, that episode, had a bunch of old monsters in the background who were radically altered, completely repainted, pieces sanded off, pieces swapped around, new stuff added on, and you barely see them for a few seconds. Meanwhile, here, these monsters are a major part, and they're really obviously, like, monsters we've seen parts of before, slapped together here. I don't know, it's a pet peeve of mine that really doesn't seem to have bothered a lot of other fans. Like, most fans, they see the old suits and they think, oh, cool, it's an Easter egg. That's not what an Easter egg is. That's just reusing the costumes. And I always, when they reuse a costume, like here, it's okay. Like they tried. Later on, there's another team up coming up soon that, yeah, they really didn't try with the costumes, and I'll complain about it. I'll equate it to, like, if they made a Batman movie, and Batman has, like, some new enemies, and this enemy looks just like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises, and this other villain looks exactly like Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, but they're not them. They're completely new original characters. You couldn't do that without expecting people to be like, hey, wait, those aren't those characters, those are those characters. And then the director would be like, no, no, these are new original characters. That doesn't make any sense, and I don't see why it should be any different for Power Rangers. Anyway, moving on. Boy, I went off on a long tangent about just the stupid monster suits. Okay, anyway, the traffic tickets thing at the beginning, it's a funny, silly, kind of cute scene that does kind of, it's meant to give Eric and Taylor a bit of interaction and familiarity with each other because of the next episode, although it doesn't really go anywhere from that. Maybe they were thinking, like, for the future, like, if these characters were to come back in the future, they could continue having a relationship between them, because the writer of this episode was Amit Bhowmik, who was thinking ahead to, like, the next season, what they could do for a Hurricanes adaptation, and he was thinking of doing more team-up stuff in the future. And this is a cool way to set up for that, lay little seeds to sprout into bigger ideas later. Unfortunately, none of that went anywhere because Disney bought it and kind of soft rebooted the whole thing. And then, I'm trying to think, I had other stuff I wanted to say about this episode, but I can't remember what it was right now. Oh yeah, now I remember. One of the things that was really weird in this is the monsters, the mute orgs. They speak in, like, reversed backwards talk. I don't know why. They don't give any reason for it here. Maybe they do in the next episode. I can't remember for sure, but I don't think they do. So it's just a weird thing they do. Let's see. When Jen is spying on them, she uses this thing, and when she, like, listens in on them, their voices are, like, reversed back to normal. Then at the end, when they introduce themselves to Master Org, they're suddenly speaking perfect English, and they're not backwards. I don't know what that was all about. That was a odd addition. Like, it's a kind of a neat, quirky little thing for these monsters. It's just, I don't really get it. I kind of talked about the other stuff I wanted to talk about in the episode, like the Rangers and technology and the Rangers and weird stuff, whatever. One of the things I wanted to talk about was Rancic's return. That is such a cool thing. Rancic's one of my favorite villains in the whole series, and heroes, kind of. Like, here, he kind of gets a redemption. Or, well, in the next episode, he kind of gets a redemption. It's really nice to see him and Adira again. And also, the last episode, according to Ranger Wiki in the preview, there's a scene where Katie and Lucas go up and talk to Rancic and ask him for his help. In the final version of the episode, that's cut, and it's just implied that they're going to ask him for help. Because, like, Rancic looks up, he sees them, and he kind of knows what's going on. See, I'm trying to remember. I know there was tons more I wanted. Oh yeah, Jen coming back. This is something I really, really, really love. Really love. As a kid, I loved it too. It was so cool seeing Jen back, and also, like, to see her back in a different outfit, because that was really weird. Oh, also something about outfits. Wes and Eric both have Silver Guardian uniforms. Wes has a red beret now. Eric doesn't. And I remember reading, I think it was Daniel Southworth didn't want to wear the hat anymore, so they just didn't. But when I was a kid and I saw, like, they show up, Wes is wearing the hat, Eric isn't, I thought, did Eric give Wes his hat? For some reason, that was, like, what I thought about it for years, was just that, oh, Wes joined the Silver Guardians and Eric gave him his old hat. whatever. Anyway, Jen's outfit is really cool, and like it must have been inspired by like Terminator or some movie like that. It doesn't look anything like the suit she wore back in Time Force. It doesn't look like the white Time Force uniform. It doesn't look like the casual clothes that Wes gave the Rangers. It's this like black leather thing, kind of like what Corone had back in Lost Galaxy. She has her hair completely different. It's like back in braids. Although by the end of the episode or next episode, it's back to normal. I'll talk about that when I get to that episode. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say about this episode. If I think of anything more, I'll talk about it next episode because two-parter. So yeah, this was such a fun episode. Really love this one. I remember, let's see, back a couple of years ago. Let's see, when the box sets of Power Rangers were coming out, and I bought this. When it came in the mail, Reinforcements from the Future was the very first thing I watched. I got out the Wild Force DVD, put it in, and watched Reinforcements from the Future, Part 1, Part 2, because it's so freaking awesome. It's my favorite episode. I can't remember what I watched next. I think I might have watched some Ninja Storm episodes next, but yeah. I just have so many fond memories of watching Reinforcements from the Future. I remember seeing it as a kid, and it just blew my mind, because even as a kid, Time Force was my favorite season, and Wild Force wasn't really my favorite season. Even now, it's not really my favorite season. I am enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would, because from what I remembered, I kind of remembered it being kind of a slower season, but I'm really liking it right now. Anyway, that's it for this one. I'll talk more in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this. See ya.